etc. Our next speaker's up, so you guys won't think I'm a total idiot. His name is pronounced Don. So Don Berger's up, and this session really I think is going to be very important. It may be kind of like a part 2 of what Howard just said. It's about event planning, event planners of the future, what the future looks like for the event planning industry. How's that sound? Awesome, 3 people, great. So Don's an amazing person. He begins to come up. One of the companies he works for now, has been voted the best places to work in DC, and that's tough, like better than the White House, better than Congress, best places to work in DC. Don has been recognized as an industry leader, industry and tech leader by BizBash and many other amazing magazines and others. And what I like, Don, about what you're doing, he volunteers. I think giving back is very important in this industry, and Don volunteers for many organizations as well. So can you please join me, give a warm round of applause for Don Berger. And Don, thanks for being here today to share with us about event industry in the future. You can put your hand together. Yeah.
Thank you very much. What do you want to do? Want to high five? What do you want to pound out? What's going on, Techsy Talk? I am so pumped to be here. I think I was here at the first Techsy Talk in the 80s. No, real talk though, I was here at the first Techsy Talk, and it's just incredible to see this event come together, and it's an honor to present once again. Massive shout out to Liz and to Ed and the rest of the team for putting this event together. Thank you. This is the kind of event that doesn't exist anywhere else, so I'm really pumped to be here. The MC, whose name escapes me, hit the nail on the head. What we're about to talk about is literally chapter 2 of what Howard just talked about. And I think it was a perfect tee up for this session. Before I do anything else though, let me quickly summarize why I believe I'm fit to talk about this. And I think that's important that speakers oftentimes kind of neglect to validate themselves so you actually believe what I'm about to say. Well, first and foremost, I'm an event planner. I used to plan events for an association, for congressmen up in New York City, in Harlem. And I always say, talk about New York City. I'm actually from New York City, so I say, I'm a little confused that I'm actually in New York City. I'm a participant. I love going to events. I've been going to events since I was a kid, whether it was a socialist march in Tel Aviv on my mom's shoulders in the 80s, to a festival in the 90s, to industry events and recently. I love going to events. I'm a supplier. Before I started Social Tables, I was actually building websites. So I know technology, I know events. And if you actually are wondering what Social Tables is, we are a marketing, sales, and operations platform for events. So the floor plans for this event were created in Social Tables. The marketing collateral for this space was created in Social Tables. That's what our software is. And a little bit about us, founded in 2011 by myself, headquartered in DC, 2 blocks away from our neighbor, the president. We have 100 employees, we've raised some money, and we have over 4,000 customers who've done 2 million events with 250 million people in those events. So we've had a lot of impact in the 5 years since we've started the company. But finally, and most importantly, is I'm a believer. I believe in the power of meetings and events, whether it's to network, to learn, to celebrate, to imagine together. I believe in the power of meetings and events. And you all should be proud of yourselves because you came in to learn and then network. And that's a really big deal. And we're gonna talk about why that's even more important in this day and age. So at Social Tables, it's something pretty simple. And that's this idea that we believe that face-to-face events should achieve great things. And if they don't, you're doing it wrong. So now that I've told you about me and about the company I started, let me talk about 3 major trends and how they're going to impact the industry. And while Howard's presentation was outstanding in talking about what we can do in the next year, 2 years, 3 years, let me show you what it might look like in the next 10, 15, 20 years. So the first trend that we're seeing is that we're entering a new revolution, right? We're entering the revolution of artificial intelligence. And let me quickly walk you through time immemorial. It started with the development of the modern human brain many, many years ago. So we had this cognitive revolution. We then had an agricultural revolution where we can actually supply food for more people than just going to hunt a woolly mammoth. And then the scientific revolution rolled out where we started having wheels and eventually the internet. And now we're starting to be part of this augmentation revolution where we wear things or we install things or we depend on machinery to do the things that humans used to do. So that's the augmentation revolution. This is from a book called Sapiens by Yuval Harari. Outstanding, outstanding book that it's just a great read that I highly recommend you check out. So if that's the case then, Let's quickly understand what artificial intelligence actually means. And by the way, most of this stuff is not my thought content. It's just stuff I put together for you, so you can feel free to just steal it anytime, take photos, or you can find it on SlideShare. So artificial intelligence has been around for quite a while, actually. The newer concepts are machine learning and deep learning. So artificial intelligence has always kind of made predictions about what you should do. It's a simple kind of algorithm that can predict work. Machine learning actually takes a bunch of data and learns from it and does the work themselves. So programmers don't have to sit and write code. The code they write automatically writes future code. And then deep learning goes even further to find patterns from that data. So what we're really talking about here is deep learning and this idea that we can take the cloud, right, where all the computers are living now. You can take the data, which is what we're entering into the universe every single day in the billions, and put it all together to see what's going on in the future and actually make decisions based off of that. So if you actually just look at investors, let's just follow venture capital. Where are venture capitalists putting their money? Well, they're putting their money in artificial intelligence. And this is how you can see the number of deals. The line is the line is the number of investments. And then the size of the deal is that bar chart. And you can see that the amount of deals is rapidly increasing. In other words, venture capitalists, the folks who fund things like Tesla and things like social tables, are predicting that this is going to be a hot issue, a hot topic in the next few years. So there's more investment. Well, what does all that mean? Well, first of all, artificial intelligence will make events better for everyone. Now, why is that? Well, imagine for a second that you no longer have to rely on your app to meet somebody, but in order to go through the directory and find somebody, the computer can actually recommend who you should go meet. It can actually make a recommendation of what city you should have your event in or what venue you should use based on what other planners like you have done. Right? So imagine, for example, a very simple algorithm that social tables can now do is that if planner 1 used venue A and venue B, and planner 2 used venue A, they might be interested in venue B. So you can start making predictions about venues and cities that you might want to choose or people you want to work with. Some aspects of the work that we do today will be automated. Riffing off of what I just talked about, imagine if our software actually recommended what date we should have the meeting based on the availability of 10,000 people. Imagine for a second if our software recommended what city we should go based on the preferences of our sales team, because that's where we're having our sales kickoff, as opposed to kind of making guesses. As event professionals, and I'm speaking as a former one, we're always making decisions for our audience as if we really know them. But why not leave that in the hands of algorithms, because they probably know a little better and we can work on other things. So if there is artificial intelligence happening and there are things being connected and we're becoming more efficient as a result of it, like optimizing schedules, then we can do complex productions in a cheaper and more efficient way. So if you have a client that doesn't have the budget but wants to do the spending that they can't, then you can now have a back-to-back event using the same setup, for example. And an artificial intelligence algorithm can actually tell us that that's possible, as opposed to us trying to figure out on the schedule. So, and that's really important because hotels make their money off of the melting ice cube that is meeting space. If you're not putting heads in beds and people in meeting rooms, you're not making money and you're not managing your revenue efficiently. So if we can find ways of stacking the meeting space up in a way that makes sense for the hotel and all their clients, then it's a win-win for everyone. The line between real and virtual events will be blurred. So right now, it's pretty obvious to know if I'm talking to somebody online, right? I go and chat with them in a chat room, or I might be using a live streaming camera. But in the future, it'll be more and more difficult to tell there's a difference. So that you're no longer engaging the different audiences in different ways. You can engage them in the same way. Serendipity will be less successful than algorithms. I like to think about the following analogy. Imagine two options. You just self-diagnose yourself with a bunch of symptoms, and you want to know what you have. Do you go to your doctor who's been out of school for 40 years, who hasn't attended a medical conference in 10 years, and hasn't gotten caught up to speed on what's going on in science? Or do you go to Google to find the latest and greatest in research about something that you think you might have? You probably choose Google, right? Well, that's the example of how we can rely on artificial intelligence and serendipity and all those other things that, or not serendipity, don't rely on serendipity, that's not a good idea. Rely on computers and algorithms to help us make smarter decisions. I like to tell the story of how we brought MGM Resorts into our customer portfolio. I was at the men's urinal at the Venetian, standing next to the head of sales for MGM. and I struck a conversation with him. And it just so happened that 2 years later, MGM became one of our biggest customers. And that was serendipity. But what if my app would have told me, hey, go meet Mike Dominguez because he's here, and you should go talk to him because he might be interested in what you have to offer. That would have saved me the embarrassment of trying to make eye contact with him while he's peeing. A new computing platform is emerging. Howard touched on this, and I'm going to take the baton that Howard handed me, and I'm going to run with it. He said that the iPhone has just celebrated 10 years, right? And hey, guess what? The average gestation phase of any computing platform is roughly 10 years. That means we're on the cusp of something new, a new computing platform, and we don't know what it might be. It might be a driverless car. It might be the Internet of Things. It might be artificial intelligence that we talked about. It might be virtual reality, augmented reality. It might be many things. We don't know what it is yet, but it's something. And the reason that's important is because if you actually, so Mary Meeker she's from Kleiner Perkins, a venture capital firm out of California. She does this incredible internet trends, which I urge you to go check out. It's 300 incredible slides of just where the internet's going. And she's been doing it for I think almost a decade now. She just came out with the latest one a couple days ago. And this is one of her earlier graphs. It talks about the decline of smartphones.
What's it called?
It's called Internet Trends. Just Google Mary Meeker or Internet Trends 2017. You'll find it. Also, everything is sourced in my slides. And you can see the only thing that's important in this graph is that red line, right? You can see the year-over-year growth of smartphone proliferation is declining, right? So when the iPhone came out around 2007, we saw a spike. All the early adopters jumped in. Then we got the early majority by 2010, and then we started a slow decline of smartphones being rolled out. And that's really important because that's signaling that, hey, this smartphone is actually saturated, and now something else is coming. What it might be, we don't know, but let me give you some thoughts of what it could look like. So the way we experience meetings and events will change. About a third of you, I'm staring at all of you, a third of you are probably on your phones or on your computers doing work, and that is all good because as part of the human evolution, we are becoming better multitaskers because that's what society is programming us to do. Or you may be taking notes, you might be doing some work. Whatever it is, it's all good. The point is that these devices in front of you, those 13 inches in front of you, that small phone in your hand, that might not be the thing that you'll be using in 10 years. It might be something else. It might be spectacles by Snap. It might be Fitbit. Hopefully we'll get their shit together and actually, sorry, that was inappropriate. They might develop something new, right? That's more exciting than hardware, right? Peloton is an incredible company, right? They're going to go public in the next 2 years. And the reason they're incredible is because they've merged software, data, and hardware to give you information about how many kilowatts you burn or something like that. It's incredible. So the way we experience events will be different. I don't know what it will be. There will be fewer site visits. Howard talked about this, but the reason that this is important is because if there are fewer site visits, then what the heck are salespeople going to do? That's how they make their money, right? That's how they close. According to Social Stable's research, 55% of site visits close. That's a great way to demo what you got, a great way to showcase your product. So we'll have to, the entire function of sales management in the hotel and venue industry will change. They might be more consultative, for example. Remote locations will become premier event destinations. Imagine being able to hop into a plane that flies by itself or a car that drives by itself so you can work all the way there and then you'll be willing to go an hour or 2 hours further away. That opens up the door to so many destinations, second-tier cities, venues that are hard to reach, and so forth. That might be the next computing platform. Predictable physical work is being replaced by machines. According to McKinsey, 18% of all U.S., I'm looking at the bottom right, 18% of all U.S. occupations contains predictable physical work. And right now, with the technology we have, 78% of that predictable physical work can be replaced by machines. Let me repeat. Nearly 1 out of every 5 jobs has 78% of predictable physical work, like food packaging, right? Slicing a tomato, right? Things that we pay a lot of money for. So what does that mean for our industry? Well, let's one more thing. Let's look at investments in robotics. So in 2015, a couple years ago, we saw $500 million invested in robotics and 83 deals, increasing year over year tremendously. So again, investors are a leading indicator of where things are going, and they're putting money in robotics. So interacting with robots will be socially acceptable. Right now, it's weird as hell, right? It might be acceptable. It might be okay for you to open the door and see a robot deliver you the toothbrush you forgot at your hotel room. It might be okay for a robot to actually give you a site visit. Robotics will be used in facility management. We have the technology to set up rooms just like this. Robots can do that work. And right now we pay so much money and we negotiate so much with unions. What if we had robots to actually do the setup and tear down of rooms? The best photographers will know how to fly. Howard talked about drones, but what if they came indoors? What if the photographer, instead of running around and shoving an elbow in your face, sat in the corner and gave you the most amazing shots based on the fact they're actually drone pilots? So I want to leave you with one very basic. Instead of being scared blankless about our jobs and our future, why don't we embrace automation and think about it as augmentation, as something that makes us better? I want to go back to the concept I introduced in the beginning of this talk, which is the Augmentation Revolution. What if all this stuff that's happening is making us actually better human beings, better employees, better friends, better significant others? So here's a quick framework that at Social Tables we adapted for the industry, and it goes a little something like this. So imagine you're a vet professional or supplier professional, it doesn't matter. There are 5 options for you in your career. The first one is step up. Let the machines do the things that are beneath you and become more strategic. Option number 2, step narrowly. Find a specialty within your profession that wouldn't be economic to automate. Actually, something like banquet management, which is room setup, is not economic to automate because I can pay 10 workers who have English as a second language minimum wage to set up this room, and that's much cheaper than bringing a machine in here. But the reality is that in 10 years, that might not be the case. So finding that niche that will never be replaced by machines is the key. Third, and this is my last slide, step in, monitor and modify the work of machines. So let the machines do the work and then go fix it and make it better. Option 4, step forward. Take part in constructing the next generation of computing and AI tools. Learning how to program, learning how to do data management, and so forth. There's so many resources available online, and they're virtually all free. And then finally, step aside. Put your other intelligences to work. Focus on EQ, which is something machines will never have, at least in our lifetimes, hopefully, and become a better person. So that's my talk for you. If I can leave you with one thought, it's this quote by John Coleman, and that's, we're all born with a natural curiosity. We want to learn, but the demands of work and personal life often diminish our time and will to engage that natural curiosity. Developing specific learning habits can be a route to both continued professional relevance and deep personal happiness. So let's embrace this change and embrace augmentation. If you like what I talked about, that's all my contact info. If you give me your card, I'll send you the deck, or you can find it on SlideShare. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you, Liz and Ed, for having me as well.
Thank you very much. Don't leave. Don't leave. And come on. Yeah, one question for Don. Don, talking to people out there, and I know some of the people here are not technical. Raise your hand, not technical, you don't know what SQL is and all those kind of things. Yeah. So Don, what would your advice be real quick, just for people out there who are a little afraid of technology? What would you recommend they do? You said it in your last slide, which is great. Any 30 seconds just for those who are afraid, those who, what would you say?
So I'd probably say 2 things. Is Mike on?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd probably say 2 things. The first one is understand basic statistics, so you can take numbers and give them meaning. And number 2, actually, programming is a lot of fun, and learning how to code is actually now becoming a second language for a lot of children. So if you have children or you have nieces or nephews, go learn how to code with them. Build a quick computer program and have fun and tinker around.
And if you don't have kids, you can rent mine. So Don, thank you so much.